This news is funded by viewers like you. Please support our work at democracynow.org/give. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israelis celebrated the return of the 4 Israeli hostages in Saturday's raid. The 4 hostages, Noah Argamani, Almag Mayerjan, Andrei Kozlov, and Shlomo Ziv, were all in good medical condition. Just hours after the rescue, thousands of Israelis gathered in Tel Aviv and throughout Israel to protest Prime Minister Netanyahu's government calling for a deal to free the remaining hostages. Some 120 hostages remain in Gaza, with 43 known dead. 105 hostages were released in a week-long ceasefire deal in November. Only 3 other hostages have been freed by military force since the start of the war. Another 3 were mistakenly killed by Israeli forces after they escaped on their own. Hamas says others have been killed in Israeli airstrikes. Meanwhile, the Biden administration's pushing for a deal announced by President Biden over a week ago that sets forth a phased plan for a ceasefire and the release of hostages. Biden described the plan as an Israeli proposal, but Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has publicly questioned it, particularly its call for the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza and a lasting truce. Hamas has demanded international guarantees that the war will end. For more, we're joined by 2 guests. In Benyamina, near Tel Aviv, we're joined by Maoz Inon. He lost both of his parents, Bilha and Yaakov Inon, in the Hamas attack on October 7th. He has called for the Israeli assault on Gaza to end. Inon wrote an article for Al Jazeera titled, "Hamas killed my parents, but Israel's war is not the answer." And joining us here in New York, Ami Dar, an Israeli social entrepreneur. He's the executive director of Idealist.org. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! Maoz, let's begin with you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Can you first respond to what took place this weekend in Nuseirat, the freeing of the 4 hostages and the killing of over 270 Palestinians by Israeli forces?
Yeah, Amy, thank you for inviting me to speak with you and in your show. I've been listening from the beginning of the show about the equation of death. It's the equation of the devil. 4 Israeli hostages equal to 270 casualties, Palestinian casualties. We are all human. No human, no Israelis, no Palestinian, not my parents, no one on planet Earth deserve to be part of this equation. No one. And we must implement a new equation, the equation of life. And this is what I'm saying. Since losing my parents, that the only way to bring the hostages back is by a deal. All hostages in exchange for all Palestinian prisoners. 8 months has passed, and we lost so many lives. So many lives of the hostages, so many Palestinian life, and there is no meaning. There is no meaning and no excuse, a justification for the suffering, for the pain, for the agony we are facing and living through. and what I'm afraid and what I'm crying for is that it might be only the beginning. It might be only the beginning, and we might face the numbers we already forgot from Rwanda. 1 million people were killed in a period of 3 months in Rwanda. And it took the world 3 months to wake up and to act. And I cannot understand what will make the world to act. Only a number of million victims between the river and the sea. I already lost my parents, and I don't want no one, no human being to be in the position I am. And we must stop it, and we must start a new phase in humanity, that we are not solving conflict through war, through bloodshed, through revenge, but we resolve conflicts through dialogue. through envisioning a better future, deciding and agreeing on the values of the future, our common ground as humans. We all deserve better. We all deserve better, and we must make the future better than what we've been going through now.
So, Maoz, can you tell us about what's happening across the country, across Israel? You have these mass protests over the weekend before and after the hostages were released. Thousands of Israelis calling for Netanyahu to agree to a ceasefire. They're hit by water cannons. There were over 30 arrested. Can you talk about what this movement is about? And also, Benny Gantz quitting the war cabinet. What meaning does this have?
Okay. I'm not a political analyst. I'm a peace activist. I lost my parents, and I believe that peace is possible. I know that peace is possible. And this is what me and my partners, Palestinian and Israeli partners, are working on now, day and night, to bring peace to this land. But I would start by differentiating between the Israeli government and the Israeli people. The Israeli government has been working now for decades into achieving one goal, is a Jewish/Israeli supremacy between the river and the sea, through settlements, through occupation, through oppressioning the Palestinian people within Israel and in the West Bank in Gaza. And while this is what the government wants to do and acting on to execute it, the Israeli people want security and safety. The Israeli people are traumatized. I traumatized from October 7th, and I can take it back in history. The Israeli people are still traumatized from the Holocaust. It's as it's an ongoing trauma that we are facing again and again. And we must cure the Israeli people. And at the same time, of course, we must cure and take in accountability the Palestinian people, because there will be no security and safety to one without the other. So how can we cure? How can we cure our people? And this is what on stake. And while the protest or guns, again, they are calling for a deal. The people on the street are calling for a deal, because more and more Israelis do understand that the safest and most humanitarian way to release the hostages without risking no one's, Israelis and Palestinian alike, is through a deal. But it's against the interest of the government, because if like your reporters analysis said before, because if the hostages will be back home, then the government will need to deal with the day after, and they don't care about the day after. They want the day after to look like the present. They want the bloodshed, the revenge, the war and the fear to continue, because it serves them in their greater mission, the greater mission of Jewish-Israeli supremacy between the river and the sea. And this is why the world must act. The world cannot wait. It's time not for talks or for speeches. It's time for action, to stop the war immediately, to make a deal, all hostages in exchange for all Palestinian prisoners, and start working to build a better future. We must envision a peaceful future between the river and the sea, and building a roadmap to make it happen. So, because our leaders are not doing it, because of lack of leadership, and Gantz is just an example of a politician that has no political imagination. He believes only in force, in military response to whatever circumstance or situation it is. But this is not what we need here. We need a political imagination to envision a better future, a diplomatic solution, like Israel knew how to do in the past with Jordan and with Egypt. And those are the only borders where we have security and safety.
We've been We've been speaking with Maoz Inon, who lost both of his parents, Bilha and Yakovi, on October 7th. Wrote the article, "Hamas killed my parents, but Israel's war is not the answer." In New York, we're joined by Ami Dar, executive director of idealist.org, also an Israeli. I'm wondering if you, too, can respond to what happened this weekend, how it's been portrayed in the United States, and Ben-Gvir, who's now that Benny Gantz has quit the war cabinet, saying he wants to be put into the war cabinet, saying that this freeing of the 4 hostages, Hamas says 3 others, including an American, were killed, but Ben-Gvir says this shows that the rescue operation means that military pressure, not a deal, is how to free hostages. Ami.
Well, good morning, Ami. Thanks for having me. First, I just want to say that I'm in awe of Maoz Inon. I think he's been one of my moral hero since this started. I think having your parents murdered and then working for peace, I'm in awe of him and of people like him in Gaza who are in the same situation, who have lost their families, and they keep talking about peace. I think they're the true heroes here. I think that, like everyone who spoke here so far, it was in the morning when I heard that I first heard that the 4 hostages had been rescued a few minutes after it happened. So obviously there's a feeling of relief for the families of those people and for the 4 people themselves. This is not, their fault. They should have never been taken. And so it was wonderful that they went back. As the day progressed and the news came out of the scope of the operation and the number of people who had been died and wounded, I was progressively horrified the whole day. But then this is part, I think, as Maoz was saying, this is part of the last 8 months. I mean, I think that on October 10th, I went on Twitter and I said, revenge is not a strategy. And I grieve for their kids as much as I grieve for ours. And our tears, taste the same and our blood is the same color. I mean, that has to be the approach, which is why people like Maoz and people like me have been calling for what's been called in Israel an all-for-all exchange from the very, very beginning. The very first week, Israel should have acknowledged, look, we lost this round, basically. And now we have to pay the price. And the price is life comes first. Life always comes first. Let's get all the hostages back. And if that means that every single detainee and prisoner, Palestinians in Israeli prisons, is released, then so be it. Life comes first. That's been my position from the very beginning, and it's still my position now. And, when you say these things, you get attacked from sort of every side. It doesn't change it. And I think what pains me the most is that this will end with a deal. We all know this. We've all been around. This will end with a deal. And I keep thinking, Amy, you and I are both old enough. I remember, John Kerry testifying in Congress in the early 70s and saying, how do you tell the last man to die that he died for a mistake? And who will be the last Israeli, last Palestinian to die hours before this deal gets made? Because there will be a deal. So do the deal. Just get it done. Both Sinwar in Gaza and Netanyahu in Israel, just do the damn deal. Sorry, I'm not a professional. I'm just here. Sorry for using that word. I'm also not representing idealists. I'm representing myself. But just do the deal. Get it done. Get everyone home, Palestinians and Israelis.
And what do you think of Netanyahu being invited by the U.S. Congress, by the House Speaker, but also the man who criticized him, Chuck Schumer? It might have surprised many that he did criticize Netanyahu, but he did. But now you have Hakeem Jeffries, Schumer, House Speaker Johnson, all inviting him to give an address to a joint session of Congress.
Yeah, I think I understand why they're doing it, in the sense that I think they're doing it as, I have a 4-year-old at home, and I know that if I give her a piece of chocolate, she may do something that I want her to do. I think they're trying to offer him a very big piece of chocolate to try to get him to do what they want him to do. I think, let me start from the end, it would be absolutely disgraceful for him to address Congress without a deal having been done already. I mean, that would be honestly insane. Without him saying that he is for a deal, without actually him saying that he's for the whole deal that Biden is proposing, which is this whole 2-state solution, the whole thing. Having him there without that, I think, is going to be a disgrace. And I also suspect it's going to be a disaster for him. I don't think that the whole of Congress will just take this quietly. I think this is not going to end well. if it's done without actually something to celebrate.
And Maoz, the significance of President Biden, and I'll ask you this question, Ami, as well, promising Israel now something like $1 billion of military weapons as this assault continues and intensifies in Gaza?
And support Israel can receive. Israel need to receive an aid to be cured from our trauma, reconciliation aid, shared future and peace aid. We don't need more military weapon. We don't need to have our bunkers supplied with bombs. And I want to again, Ami, it's a pleasure and honor to be with you in the same panel. And what I realized, and I believe now, is that the only war which is won is war which leads to peace. And Israel, I'm afraid to say, lost all its wars under the Prime Minister of Benjamin Netanyahu. He is the worst leader Israel ever had, and probably the worst leader the Jewish people ever had. And we must stop his position, and we must start a new leadership. And if we need the assistance and the aid of the American people, of both Congress and Senate, from the Republicans and the Democratic Party, to support us to win a war after 30 years of defeats. And to win a war means to make peace. This is the only way for the future. This is what we deserve, and we are not going to compromise again on a ceasefire. We are not going to compromise for anything less than a lasting peace.
And Ami, if you can, in this last 30 seconds we have, you're here in the United States, you're an Israeli, address both audiences.
I think that the single, in 30 seconds, I think anyone who's outside of the whole region who wants to actually see peace win. I don't think it's possible for Israel to win. I don't think Palestinians can win. I think only peace can win. Any side winning, in quotes, means the whole region loses. Only peace can win. And so do whatever you can to support those people on both sides across the region who are doing what they can to get people together. Anything bringing people together is good. Anything pulling people apart is bad. Support those who are trying to make people come together, and maybe we come out of this. Maybe. I'm not optimistic.
Ami Dar, Executive Director of Idealist.org, and Maoz Inon lost both his parents in the October 7th attack, calling for peace. Also, many of his friends. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for joining us. Democracy Now! Is funded by viewers like you. Please give today at democracynow.org/give.